So Ubisoft's latest game, For Honor, played center stage at the Ubisoft E3 conference with good reason. It looks awesome. Now, there was a gameplay trailer that was actually shown at the conference, which gave us a little bit more information about the game. So here are 5 things that we learned about For Honor. Number 1, a story campaign. Now, last year, we got to see more on the multiplayer side of things, but it has been confirmed by Ubisoft Montreal that there will be a single player campaign as part of the game which you can jump into and enjoy. Now, to basically set the scene, the story of For Honor is actually set in the midst of a war. There has effectively been a 1,000-year war that's being waged between 3 divisions: the samurai, Vikings and knights. Now, there is a big bad in the game called Apollyon and her Black Stone Legion. It looks like the story is potentially going to be split into 3 major sort of campaigns or threads throughout it. You will play a hero character in each of these divisions. Now, as you drop into the samurai, the basic goal of that, we've been told, is to unite your people. So there's a kind of a civil war going on at the moment. So your purpose is to prevent this civil war and also to restore the glory of the Japanese Empire. If you're playing as a knight, then your goal is to be knighted and also to join the Black Stone Legion and fend off any would-be invaders into your land. And if you're a Viking, you play the raider, which is one of the major warriors in that camp, and your basic goal is nothing but good old plunder and glory. Now, it looks like you will jump in between each of the factions to play main characters. Each of those characters will have a progressive story as well, and ultimately it looks like potentially they could be ultimately joining to fight against Apollyon and her Black Stone Legion. We don't know much about the single player story campaign other than that there is one, and it sounds interesting and it should be good fun. Okay, number 2, the melee combat system. Now, we obviously saw a lot about that at E3 last year, but we did actually get to see a little bit more about it. So to explain it to you, the melee combat system in For Honor is what's called the Art of Battle. Now, it looks very, visually it looks very similar to Rise, Son of Rome in terms of, epic backdrops and scenarios and big sieges, big castle sieges going on and that sort of thing. But the actual combat looks a lot more sophisticated than we had. This is not button crunching. It is not pressing a combination of buttons. In the actual combat, you have, as you go into a stance, you basically go into a defensive stance where you can lock onto an enemy target, and then you have use your right stick, and you have what looks like a shield with, north, west, and east. And what you basically do is, as you select one of them, you'll go into a stance. Now, the idea is to match your opponent. So if your opponent's stance is to the right, then you also want to be to the right so you can block and deflect their attacks. But obviously, if you're wanting to attack them, then you have to go into a different stance as well. So it looks incredibly strategic. If you have experienced fencing, it will seem very familiar to you. Obviously, you can have lots of feints and bluffs and that kind of thing. And it looks really, really cool. You have to try to predict what your opponent's going to do and then obviously counter that. Now, for the actual story campaign, we saw an actual trailer of it. The enemy AI didn't look overly that great. It looked pretty much as you were fighting your way through these hordes of enemies. You have the lower the lower ranked soldiers that you can just pretty much decimate with normal melee hits, and then you have a higher ranking soldiers where you will have to go into this one-on-one combat stance. But there were certain moments in the actual trailer where you could see 2 or 3 or 4 of these soldiers, and they basically waited and took it in turns to actually attack you. So it didn't seem that realistic. The enemy AI didn't seem overly brilliant. I'm hoping it'll get more difficult as the game progresses, obviously, or you'll be able to turn up the level of difficulty as well. It seemed playing the combat in the main story that it could very well become repetitive or boring. I think the art of combat, I think that is going to really come into its own when you're playing the multiplayer side of things, because when you have human players playing, then it is a lot more spontaneous. It is more difficult to predict what they're going to do, and obviously a lot more exciting in that way. But yeah, I like the melee combat system. It looks interesting, and I love the fact that all the different factions have a different different move sets. So the samurai are quick and agile. The knights are obviously, you know, have a massive broadsword, and then obviously the Vikings with their giant axes and heavy hitters. So it looks interesting, and I'm a massive fan of medieval sort of periods in history, so I'm very much interested in this. The third new thing that we were told about as well is there are going to be special kills that you can do. So there are environmental kills that you can do, so you can push an opponent onto, say, spikes if they were on there. You can actually push them off of ledges as well, and that really opens up the combat quite nicely and should make for some very epic moments. The fourth thing that we learned are boss fights. There will be key boss fights throughout the game. Now these seem to be at the end of a mission or a campaign. So for example, in the one that we saw at E3, it was a Viking campaign, and you were actually attacking or trying to conquer a samurai stronghold, and as you fought your way through this stronghold and completed different objectives, opening the gate for your troops, you ultimately square off against the boss, which is this amazing samurai war chief that you fight. And the boss fight looked cool, but it looked the same, you know, it was pretty much the same as the sort of lieutenant or captains that you're facing. And I would have liked for the boss fight to be a little bit more epic in scope, very similar perhaps to, you know, what we get in Uncharted 4, where the boss fights are imaginative, creative and fun. So the boss fight looked challenging. Obviously he has a larger HP, more health, he's more aggressive, he does more damage, but you know, I'm curious to see what boss fights will look like in the main game. If it's just a fight each boss as you progress, then that's going to be a bit boring, but maybe you have to change your tactics as they're obviously might be different in terms of the you know, the war tactics that they're using and the combat that they're used to. The final thing that we learned as well is the actual release date. So the release date For Honor is going to be on Valentine's Day, people. So it's going to be coming out on the 14th of February next year, 2017. So if you want to show that special someone that you love them, then go ahead and buy For Honor for them. I can't think of a better gift than blood, guts, gore, and combat. But yeah, so that is when the game is going to be released. But that is pretty much some of the things that we learned about For Honor. I am interested in the single player campaign. It sounds interesting, but I think multiplayer is probably what I'm going to be spending most of my time playing. But yeah, it looks good. Visually looks amazing. It looks stunning. And I just want to get my hands on the actual combat system to see what it feels like. And because when you're looking at it, when you're watching it, it does look repetitive. It does look, you know, boring or dull. It looks like it could potentially become you know, monotonous, but you don't know until you get your hands on the game and you actually have a go at it. So if any of you did get to go through E3 and you did get to play it, let me know what it was like in the comment section below. If you didn't, then let me know what you generally think of the game as well. Alright guys and girls, well, I'll be back with more information videos throughout the week. Hope you guys have a great week. Take care, and as always, happy gaming. Yeah.